The next question is regarding the gift tax, and I was pleased to get this one because gift tax is a very misunderstood and overlooked element of estate and tax planning. So this was very useful. The question was, my financial advisor recommended that my husband and I start considering a gifting program for our children and grandchildren. Why do we need to do this, and what is the benefit? So gifting is done most commonly to begin to draw down the value of estates that might be subject to the estate tax, whether it's a federal or state tax. The idea basically is to give money away now to make sure that there isn't money that is taxed at a very high rate by the state or federal government later. It's a perfectly reasonable process, and it's widely recommended. It's driven by the gift tax, and the gift tax most people don't even know exists. It taxes, just like it sounds, gifts of cash or property for the fair market value of that property. Now, there are important exclusions and exceptions to the tax that make it not much of an issue for most of us. And that is, every year, an individual, according to the IRS in 2017, can give away $14,000 to another individual, being completely safe from gift tax. It's an exclusion from the tax. So that means in this question here, the husband and wife can give each one of their grandchildren and children $14,000 every year. So the two of them combined can give $28,000 to each grandchild or child. So it's very useful for drawing down estates quickly. If you happen to go over that annual exclusion amount, so what if you give $20,000 to each kid? Well, that difference between the exclusion, 14, and the gift, which in this case is 20, is then taken off the lifetime combined exemption of the estate tax and gift tax. So the estate tax, which I've talked about elsewhere, provides in 2017 a $5.49 million exemption. So you can pass that property without paying estate tax. Well, you just draw down that exemption by anything that you pay to as far as a gift in a given year that's over the annual exclusion amount. So you've got some wiggle room here. That's useful. Who pays the tax? The donor pays the tax. So if you go over and you need to pay a tax, the donor, that's the person who gives the gift, not the person who gets the gift, pays the tax. There's something else very important to be considered in this particular scenario, though, and that is they're talking about property, not cash. So grandma and grandpa are going to give granddaughter their home. Well, by and large, for tax purposes, granddaughter in this scenario is going to assume the basis of grandma and grandpa for the house. What that means is if they've been in that house for many, many years, their basis for tax purposes may be very small. And if at some point a tax needs to be paid on the sale of that home, it might be detrimental to granddaughter from a tax perspective. So you should talk to a CPA or tax professional when making a gift that is this sizable, whether it's real estate or cash or stocks and bonds. Finally, there's one really, really important exemption from the gift tax, and that is there's an exemption for medical or tuition payments made directly to a provider. That means a grandma and grandpa, for instance, now not in this case, but in another one, grandma and grandpa could pay the tuition of a grandchild or grandchildren, and all that payment is completely exempt from the gift tax. However, it must be made directly to the provider. So the grandma and grandpa have to write those tuition checks directly to the university, or in a case of medical bills, directly to the provider, so that they cannot write a check to grandchildren to reimburse them for the grandchildren's educational expenses. It's a very important distinction, and it can have very significant tax consequences. Thanks.